In this video, I'm going to respond to some of the most frequent comments on what is now the most widely viewed video on my channel, a video called Stop Being Awkward, that describes 10 behaviors that might make others see you as awkward or weird. This video now has about 300,000 views and 2,000 comments, and I've really enjoyed interacting with the viewers in the comments section, but some comments come up over and over again, and I thought I should make a video responding to the most common comments, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm Bruce Lambert from How Communication Works. This is a channel where I teach you about communication skills so you can improve your relationships, succeed at work, and be more confident. Now let's get to some of those comments. The first comment I want to react to was something like, I don't care what other people think. I don't care if people think I'm weird, or I don't give an F what other people think about me. My first reaction to this comment is that it seems defensive to me. So I make this video about 10 behaviors that might make other people think you're weird or awkward. Someone sees a behavior that they themselves do, and it makes them feel defensive. And their first reaction is to lash out in some way and to basically say, I don't care what other people think. This is the classic reaction of sour grapes. What sour grapes means is, there's some grapes, but you can't reach them. You really want some grapes, but you can't reach them. They're up high on the vine or something. And so you think those must be sour grapes. I don't want them anyway. This seems like a sour grapes reaction to me. I don't care what other people think. There's very few human beings who don't care what other people think about them. One of the most natural human impulses is a desire to belong and is a desire to be loved, to be liked, to be accepted, to be approved of. These are basic human needs. So I'm very skeptical when someone says, I don't care what other people think. Now, having said that, I definitely acknowledge some people care much more than others about what people think about them. And if you care too much about what people think about you, you're going to be paralyzed because you can't control what other people think about you. And it's, part of the ancient Stoic philosophy is to only care about things that are in your control. And since you can't really control what other people think about you to a certain extent, then we shouldn't care too much about it. So I get that. But most of these people, I think, probably do deeply care what other people think about them. Or at least there's a small number of people whose opinions really matter to them. My other reaction to the idea that I don't care what people think of me is, I wonder if these people are really inconsiderate. So I wonder if you ask these people, or more importantly, if you ask their acquaintances, their family, their friends, their coworkers, would they feel like this person doesn't care about them? So this is a person who says, I don't care what other people think. If that's how you really feel, then I think that probably comes across in your behavior. If you don't care what other people think, that means you don't consider other people's feelings or their thoughts or their opinions when you are thinking about your own behavior. That's the sort of very definition of being inconsiderate. You don't consider other people's opinions when you design your own behavior. That's what it means to not give a damn what other people think. Maybe you call me soft or call me a humanist or something like that, but I believe most of the meaning of life is in relationships, and that people want relationships. They want a feeling of love, belonging, connection, intimacy, and so on. And therefore, they do care what people think about them. But my video made them feel criticized, and so this was a defensive reaction. The second common comment that I wanted to respond to is, ignore this guy, just be yourself. Well, if you watch the video, I was responding to a comment in a Reddit thread, and this comment said, I'm a person who's socially awkward, but whenever I ask people what I'm doing that makes people feel awkward around me, they always say, oh, you're fine, just be yourself. And this is unhelpful. Some people really do feel socially awkward. They really do have bad outcomes in social interaction. And I'm going to return to this point over and over again. When I say people have bad outcomes in social interaction, it means that the important things that most of us get out of the social world, namely friendships, intimate relationships, work relationships and career success, and this feeling of connection and belonging and intimacy, that's what most of us want out of the social world. And lots of people are not getting that. People are lonely, people are socially isolated, and this leads to anxiety, depression, even suicide. So there are real consequences to lacking social skills, and that's the kind of issue that I'm trying to address. So telling people to just be themselves is unhelpful and insensitive. Plus, a lot of people who are a little bit confused about the social world don't even know what that means. To be yourself assumes that you have a fully formed identity that you like and that is sort of well developed, and that when you're being yourself, this means something that you can fully express, some fully formed identity. But especially for young people, which is adolescents and young adults, this is when the identity development process happens in most human beings. They may not have a fully formed identity yet, and its difficulty with social skill may have gotten in the way of developing a fully formed identity that they like and value, that they could express. So it's easy for someone who has a fully formed identity that they really like and that other people value to be themselves. They're giving expression to this fully formed identity. But for lots of people, they don't have yet a fully formed identity, or they don't have an identity that they like, that other people seem to like and approve of. And so telling them to be themselves is unhelpful. The third comment I want to react to is probably the deepest and most significant comment. It deserves a video all of its own, but I'll try to begin to address it here. And that is people saying, I'm autistic, or I have ADHD, or I'm neurodivergent, and you're criticizing all neurodivergent people, or this is just a list of behaviors that are characteristic of autism or ADHD or people who have various other kinds of neurodivergence. In the comments section, one of my responses to this was, those may be the causes of some of these behaviors. But this video is primarily talking about the effects of these behaviors rather than the causes. I wasn't trying to make a video about where do these behaviors come from, where does social awkwardness come from. I was trying to make a video about what do these behaviors lead to? What do they cause? They cause other people to perceive you in a particular way. First of all, I want to acknowledge that many of the behaviors I identified in that video are in fact symptoms of, or signs of, or characteristics of neurodivergent conditions like autism, ADHD, and related sorts of social and developmental disorders or conditions. So I'm not disputing that some of these behaviors have biological causes. In fact, I'm not really agreeing or disagreeing with that. That wasn't what the video was about. I'm perfectly happy to stipulate that some of these behaviors have biological causes. Okay, then what? So let's say a person has a biological condition, a neurodivergence of some sort, that causes them to manifest some of these behaviors that lead others to see them as socially awkward or weird or whatever term you want to choose. What then? There were two main responses to this what then question. One is neurotypical people, or normals or normies, or whatever you want to say, but people who are not neurodivergent should accommodate to the behaviors of neurodivergent people. This is a widely held view among lots of people in the comments section that say, I'm neurodivergent, I have autism, I have Asperger's, I have ADHD. People should accommodate to me. That's a political position, really. But I'm not a revolutionary. I'm not here advocating for broad-scale social change about these things. I'm not sure how that would work. Many of these social norms about turn-taking and interruption, about personal space, about relevance, about hygiene, about eye contact, the sorts of things I mentioned in the video, these are deeply entrenched social norms. A lot of people in the comment section seem to think I made up these social norms, or I was endorsing them. I'm just describing them. I'm a scientist. I describe the way the world is, and I tried to describe cause and effect relationships in communication. And what I tried to describe in this video was, if you exhibit these behavior, that's going to cause certain effects, that is, people's perceptions of you. This idea that normies or neurotypical people should accommodate their expectations, and I guess the idea is they shouldn't care about interruptions or social distance issues or personal hygiene problems or lack of eye contact or irrelevance or any of these other issues that I mentioned in the video. Neurotypical people should just learn to live with that and accept people in spite of that. I understand that position. It advocates for large-scale social change. I don't know how you bring that about. I don't know what the likelihood is of that happening, of all neurotypical people suddenly accommodating to the violation of these normal expectations. It could happen. We've seen other norms fall by the wayside. Maybe these should. That's not my agenda. I allow that to be other people's agendas. I am curious about how that would work. So let's say we're in an interaction and someone violates one of these expectations, one of these social norms about social distance or interruptions or relevance or eye contact or whatever it is, and we're supposed to accommodate to that if they're neurodivergent. But how do I know whether a person is neurodivergent and not just being rude or not just being awkward for some other reason. Because although neurodivergence like autism and ADHD may cause these behaviors, there's lots of other causes for these behaviors. A lot of the people in my comments seem to think that autism and ADHD and other forms of neurodivergence were the only causes of these behaviors that might make you look socially awkward. But there are many other causes, including, poor parenting, trauma, the head injuries, history of abuse or neglect or substance use. There's just all sorts of reasons that might cause people to behave this way, or just people are just jerks. And so I don't know in an ordinary interaction how I identify someone as someone who I need to accommodate to, and how I identify someone as someone who's just being a jerk or irrelevant or rude. Now, with other disabilities, like in a university setting, when I teach a class, I get a list of students at the beginning of the semester who have asked for accommodations according to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I offer accommodations in response to people who identify themselves as people with a disability. But I don't know how this would work in ordinary interaction. And maybe in the comments you could tell me how you think that would work. But as far as this issue goes with neurodivergence, the bottom line is these behaviors in the world we live in now, not in some ideal world in the future where everyone accommodates to these differences, but in the world we have now, these behaviors often lead to poor outcomes. And in general, neurodivergent people or people with autism, ADHD, etc., often have poor outcomes in areas that are really important to them, not just important to me. They often have few friendships, few intimate relationships, relatively poor success and development in their careers, and they're often socially isolated and depressed as a result, anxious and so on. So these are poor life outcomes. I'm trying to help people get better life outcomes, people, including people who are neurodivergent, who want to try to learn these social skills. I realize they might not be easy to learn. It might not even be possible to learn these skills if your brain is wired differently, but that's the sort of mission that I'm on. If there's a person out there who says, I don't have these social skills, they make me seem awkward and weird. As a result, I'm socially isolated. I don't have any friends. I don't have any intimate relationships, and my work relationships are all bad. I want help. That's the sort of person I'm trying to help. If that's not you, then my channel's probably not for you. If that's you, I'd like to hear from you, and I'm trying to help. The fourth common comment I wanted to react to was, I like being weird. This is related to the first comment about, I don't care what other people think. And I get it. People like to be nonconformist. People can sometimes have being weird or awkward integrated into their identity in a way that they're comfortable with. And what I say to those people is, great. If it's not a problem, then it's not a problem. You don't need my help. You're not looking for my help. And if you're comfortable with who you are, I'm happy for you. It's hard to be comfortable with who you are. It's often just hard to be a person in the social world for all of us, neurodivergent and neurotypical alike. So if you're happy with who you are and you feel a little bit weird or awkward, I'm really, really happy for you. And I've no criticism, no complaint. That's great. But again, I do wonder whether this is a defensive reaction. But if it's a defensive reaction, it may be, well, I'm weird or awkward, or people have told me I'm weird or awkward, and that's been hard for me to deal with. So my reaction to that, my defensive reaction to that, has been to try to accept my own weirdness or awkwardness and even learn to love myself in spite of it. That's a healthy reaction. But that person still might not really like being weird or awkward in the eyes of other people. They would prefer to have more friends, more intimate relationships, better career success, and so on, the kinds of outcomes that better social skills might get for you. So I'm not sure how to react to this one about I like being weird. But in general, if it's not a problem, then it's not a problem. The fifth common comment was something about social norms. Either following social norms makes me a robot, it makes me a drone, it makes me a slave, or social norms are just made up. Or even the other one, you, Bruce, are making up these social norms and forcing them on us. So let me try to take on these one at a time. First of all, are social norms just made up? Not in the sense that it sounds like. It's not as if there's a committee somewhere making up these norms. So think about the norm of turn taking. In conversation, we should take turns, right? There shouldn't be too much simultaneous talking. There shouldn't be too many interruptions. These are the social norms of conversation, especially turn taking and relatively little simultaneous talking. There was no committee who made that up. These are norms that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years. We're not going to move away from them very easily. Other norms about social distancing, though there's definitely cultural variation in norms of social distance, these are deeply culturally ingrained expectations about how social interaction will work. And there was no group who, quote, just made them up. So the question is, are they social constructions? Are they human constructions? Yes. In that sense, they're made up. But there wasn't a committee or a group of people who are alive now who set up these norms. And I certainly didn't make them up. I'm not even necessarily endorsing them. Again, I'm a scientist. I'm describing them. I'm telling you, this is what the norms are. If you violate these norms, there are consequences. That's what the video was about. And then this related idea that if I adhere to social norms, I'm a robot or I'm a slave or I'm a mindless conformist. None of these things are true. There are a million different ways to adhere to these norms. If you adhere to norms of personal space or relevance or eye contact or turn taking, whatever it is, there's a million ways to be an individual and still adhere to those norms. If you take all people are, quote, neurotypical, look at how different they all are. It's not like they're all the same in their behaviors or their personalities. There's enormous room for variation in personal style, in personality, in behavior, and still be adhering to a norm. So the idea that we're slavish robots and mere conformists if we adhere to norms, I think is an oversimplification and just really not true. I also think there should be more respect for social norms. Social norms are solutions to recurring social problems that our ancestors handed down for us. Now, many people have a lot of respect for their ancestors, for their forebears, for the people who came before us. There were recurring social problems, and these norms evolved as standardized solutions to these social problems. This does not mean that all social norms should last forever or that they're all good. Obviously, we had norms about racism and discrimination and sexism and all these other things that were archaic and harmful that we overcame. So not all norms should be permanent. Not all norms are good. But many norms of human interaction evolved over a very long time period, and they do solve certain problems. If you want to get rid of them, the underlying problems that they solved haven't gone away. So you will need a new set of norms to deal with those same kinds of problems. One more thing about norms, as I've said before, you can choose to flout them. That means intentionally ignore them. You can choose not to adhere to them for whatever reason. You can pick and choose which norms you follow. What I was trying to say in the video is there will likely be consequences. So you can choose to ignore social norms, but you can't choose to be free of the consequences of ignoring social norms. The sixth comment is related to the fifth, and that is that if I adhere to social norms, I'm being inauthentic. People said things like, this video proved that the social world is just performances, and I want to be myself and I don't want to be inauthentic. Well, yes. I believe if you've watched any of my other videos about Erving Goffman, the famous 20th century sociologist, he said the social world is a stage, right? Just like Shakespeare said. We are actors on that stage. Every social encounter is a performance, a presentation of self. So we are all, at least in my view of the social world, we are all actors. We are playing a role. We wear costumes, we say lines, we are engaged in performances. This does not mean we're inauthentic. So think of two of my different roles. I'm a parent and I'm a teacher and I'm a friend. So let's think of three of them. I don't behave the same way in each of those roles. When I'm with my friends, I behave and speak and dress in a certain way. When I'm with my kids, I behave and speak in a different way. When I'm with my students, I behave and speak in yet a different way. In none of those roles am I inauthentic. I am authentically being myself as a teacher. I am authentically being myself as a parent. I'm authentically being myself as a friend. So authenticity does not mean sameness. To be your authentic self in some way means being true to some deeper set of principles or values. But that authenticity, that commitment to those values can be given expression in relation to many different roles. So I don't think that adhering to social norms, especially the kinds I'm talking about, communicative norms, makes you in any way inauthentic. And I don't think that performing in our roles makes us inauthentic. I think many of us have a bad idea of authenticity. There's something pure inside of me that needs to be given expression, but that there isn't really like that. If you look closely at your life, you have many, many social roles, many identities, and each of them expresses something authentic about you. There isn't this authenticity as a unified sameness So I think we need to let go of that idea of authenticity and allow ourselves to perform freely in different roles. The seventh common comment was something like, "You're weird," meaning me, that you're too close to the camera, you talk funny, your eyebrows are funny. This is, on the one hand, again, another defensive reaction. They felt criticized by my video, so they wanted to criticize me. But on the other hand, sure, I'm weird. We're all a little bit weird. I freely acknowledge my own weirdness, but I'm perfectly capable and do adhere to most of these social norms most of the time. So awkwardness, weirdness, isn't necessarily a deep-seated character trait. All of us are awkward some of the time. All of us are a little bit weird some of the time. All of us break these social norms some of the time. That's what embarrassment and social humiliation and cringing and awkwardness is all about. These are fleeting aspects of our social lives. They're not necessarily enduring characteristics of us as people. So if you want to criticize me, fine. That's what comes with, putting myself out there on YouTube. And in that video, yes, I was a little too close to the camera. Look at how far I am from the camera. Look at how much I learned. And look at my eyebrows, how funny they are. So sure, I'm weird. So are you. The eighth one is just a funny one. People said, "You look like Stanley Tucci. You look like Gilbert Gottfried. You look like Jerry Seinfeld. You look like Jeff Goldblum. You look like Nicolas Cage. Can you people please decide which celebrity I look like and just let me know once and for all?" Thanks so much for watching the video. It has more views than any other video on my channel. I really appreciate all the interesting engagement, and most people are really sincere and thoughtful and wanting to relate their experience. Some people are critical. That's just the way it goes in the comment section. But I wanted to share with you these reactions to some of the most common comments. I hope you enjoy them. If you like this kind of video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, go on over to my website at howcommunicationworks.com and read the blogs. We'll see you next time.